Yo, 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 everybody. What is up? Welcome back to another episode of the What Now podcast. Spencer and Zach are back in the booth with one of our homies. Zach, who you got, dude?
Yeah, today we are joined with Dr. Kyle Bilquist, coming out of New Jersey, Florida, when he's there part-time, owner of the Source Wellness, Chiropractic Wellness. Did I get that right? Source Wellness Center. 2 locations in the great state of New Jersey. So, Dr. Kyle, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me. Love your guys' podcast, What Now? I listen to it all the time, but pleasure to be here. Love you both. Know you both very well. So, yeah, thanks for having me on, taking the time and having me on your podcast. Appreciate it, guys.
Real quick, so I'm from Louisiana. I don't know anything about the Northeast. The only time I've ever been to the Northeast actually was to go to your house, Kyle. And is like being from New Jersey a bad thing? I feel like they're like, especially with people.
You broke up a little bit. Did you say bad thing?
Yeah, is there like a cultural jab toward like being from New Jersey? Like I feel like in all the shows that I watch, like everybody's like, oh, Jersey. Like, is there like a thing?
Big time, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. My wife, Stephanie, she's from Kansas. So initially when we were trying to get her family out there, like, we don't want to go to Jersey because everybody thinks it's like, the Sopranos TV show or something, you got
either the Sopranos or Jersey Shore. So it's just like a bunch of snookies running around.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's where I grew up, was in that town where the Jersey Shore was filmed.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I love Jersey for a few reasons, but the main, you have to have a little bit tougher skin kind of practicing there. Like I'll have people sit down right in front of me and be like, yeah, I don't agree with chiropractic at all. I'm like, well, why'd you come into a chiropractic? Like they'll sit there and tell you things. So, you have to have a bit thicker skin. And, coming from Jersey, going out to the Midwest for school, because I went to Palmer out in Iowa, I was like, wow, like my guard was up, but everybody was so nice all the time. I'm like, why are you being so nice to me? Like, what kind of scam you here,
Exactly.
know? So it served me well in that sense, where I feel like it helped me develop a little bit thicker skin. But yes, some of the stereotypes are true, some aren't. But yeah, I love it. I wouldn't say it's a bad place, but definitely a little bit tougher sort of population in the area, if you want to say.
I think Jersey, being from Connecticut, I feel like Jersey gets such a bad rap because when you drive through New Jersey, if you're going to like Delaware, Philly, New York, like you have to go through the Jersey Turnpike, and the Turnpike is nasty. Then you get off and you like, Jersey's nickname is the Garden State, and you realize like, oh wow, there's the beach, there's forests. I mean, it's a great state.
Yeah, you get a little bit of everything there. I mean, like, if you want to ride a horse, like all that stuff, once you get a little bit south, you got a little bit of everything. But I think a big part of it is when you land in Jersey, you land in Newark, which is, your land, like that's some of the most hood areas are in that area. So you're driving around those streets, or like if you come in for a seminar and it's at one of those hotels, you're like, Jersey sucks. Then you drive a little bit south and it's fun. And Jersey doesn't suck up north. My offices are up north. So if any of my patients or anybody listen to this, there's a lot of good stuff there as well. But yeah, definitely it's kind of like 3 states in one. You go down south, you have like farmland and stuff like that. You go to the shore, you have the beach and whatnot. And then you got obviously the city, which that's what everybody thinks about when they think of Jersey.
Those are going to be my 2 hard-hitting questions before we get into the light stuff about like owning a practice and building a life with your wife and everything was, is Central Jersey a real thing? And then is it Taylor ham or is it pork roll?
It's pork roll, baby. It's pork roll for us. There is a bridge literally on one side of the bridge, I've gotten sandwiches and it's pork roll, egg and cheese. And then you go to the other side of the bridge and it's Taylor ham. So it separates right from North Jersey down to the South Jersey, Mid Jersey area.
I was able to catch one of those bagels. It is pretty solid.
Did you like it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my experience in Jersey with you guys was awesome. I was telling Kate, I was like, man, it wouldn't be too bad to live in Jersey. Like, it's kind of nice. Weather's nice. Beach is nice.
Yeah, we love it there.
Pretty sweet.
I've always said, a beach house in Jersey, for the summer, especially to escape the Texas heat, one of the dreams.
Hey, come on down, man. You guys are welcome anytime. It doesn't have to be for a seminar or something. You guys just hop on down and hang out anytime you want.
Well, that's cool, man. Well, we're super glad to hang out with you, and I'm really glad. I feel like this has been a long time coming, getting you on the show, just because, now getting into the real show, not all the Jersey talk. But I feel like, Kyle, you're like one of the best kept secrets in the world of Steph. Like, I feel like everybody knows you as Steph's husband, but dude, like, you're really a beast. Like, you really know a lot of your, like, you know what you're doing in terms of business. You're a good chiropractor, and you're a great dude to just talk to and just learn from. And so give everybody like kind of the backstory into, you know, how'd you get to chiropractic school? What was your experience like in chiropractic school? And then, you know, just like kind of the gist of you opening up your practice and to where you are now. I know that's a lot to cover, but
Yeah, no, right on. I think I really started thinking about chiropractic. I mean, I've always gone to a chiropractor. My parents always kind of took me to a chiropractor when I was younger. But I was like a 3-sport athlete, and I ended up hurting my back in a football game. Parents took me to the hospital, no fracture or anything like that. But, you know, they want to start kind of wheeling you down the medical paradigm. So she ended up not listening to them, brought me to a chiropractor. Couple adjustments later, I was back on the field. So I feel like that kind of planted the seed for me. You know, fast forward, then I went to college. I knew I wanted to do something in the medical field somewhere. I didn't know whether I was going to be like a pharmacy rep or whatever. So, you know, got my pre-med degree at Delaware Valley College, very small school in Pennsylvania. After I got it, you know, I was kind of looking around, didn't know if I was going to do physical therapy, you know, something in that realm. And then I started shadowing a chiropractor in the area. And I just saw like life-changing stuff going on. And I was like, man, you're doing all this like with no drugs, with your hands. And, you know, you're a pillar in your community. And, you know, I was just so amped about it. So applied to Palmer, Florida, because I wanted to be by the water. And I was a big wrestler in my undergrad, all-American wrestler. So I'm about to leave for Florida, and I get a phone call, and it's the captain of the rugby team at Palmer Davenport. And he's like, hey, if you come here, you know, you could earn a scholarship and like pay for some of your school. So it's funny, like instead of getting off, driving my car down to Florida and being in beautiful weather, end up driving out to the Midwest. I get out, there's like chunks of hail falling on my head. And like, what did I do? So yeah, that was kind of my journey. And then I absolutely love school. You know, some of my best friends that I've made in my life, I made at school. Yeah, wasn't the most studious. You know, I was like probably a BC average type person. Failed my Part 4 boards right before.
welcome to the club, bro.
That's the Part 4 crew.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we right before we moved and we decided on moving back to Jersey, Steph got in with a really good practice there. And I was at a really good practice that I liked as well, but ended up failing my boards. So tough pill to swallow. You know, you think you get out of school, you think you're just going to get handed cash and, you know, everybody's going to roll out the red carpet for you. But you kind of, you know, school of hard knocks, kind of learn the hard way that's, you know, that's when work starts. You know, everybody thinks you graduate and the work's done, but really that's when the work starts. So yeah, ended up driving a dump truck for a while my wife's going in, and, you know, I'm working with like these 18-year-old kids, like just trying to make a little extra cash for the home. You know, I joke about it now, but yeah, very somber time in my life. That's when I really knew Steph was, you know, my wife was really down because, you know, it was, you know, you get a little depressed at the time. So ended up passing Part 4 boards, and, you know, everything happens for a reason, because the practice I was going to go for ended up folding up. And I found a really great practice to kind of move forward with. Yeah, the practice I first started with, they opened up in like gyms in Retro Fitnesses, which is like a big chain. So they had like multiple offices, and they would kind of have me bounce around, open up offices, segue another doc in. And I learned so much from the business side of things at that time. And I really kind of learned how I wanted to practice kind of more in a multidisciplinary setting. And then, you know, went to them and told them, listen, I'm going to kind of do it on my own. And that's kind of what brought me to opening my practices up north in Jersey. Yeah.
That's really cool. I think there's a lot we can kind of stem from there. But, you know, what did you learn, if, you know, much during your...
So they were awesome. They really, you know, taught me a lot in that aspect. So I think, you know, if you are in school and you're looking for an associateship, like definitely go to somebody who's going to teach you things, like no matter what the monetary value is on it, because that development's going to kind of, you know, push you forward in life in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that was
great.
what I was about to ask to kind of follow up on that. Is just like, you know, what is the gap like in being an associate business owner, or like being an associate to a business owner? Like where did you, you know, you say like, oh yeah, I didn't know anything in business and stuff, but like, what are those things like that you feel like, okay, I didn't know anything about this or anything about that. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are like, okay, I want to learn business, but like, where do I go to learn that? Where do I start to learn that? Like, what now? Like, literally the whole premise of this podcast is like, I want to do this, but I don't know where to start. And I don't know what it's actually like, if it's gonna be worth my investment. So like for you, what was that thing that, because dude, like you guys bring in a lot of revenue, like in between both of your practices. Like, how do you go from 0 to 100K a month, whenever you're like, when you say quote unquote, I don't know anything about business, you got to know something now,
Yeah. So I was with them for 5-6 years, and I quit at like year 3, and they kind of like made me a partner. So I was like 25% owner of a couple of the clinics. They were basically trying to golden handcuff me. They were trying to, give me a big payout like toward the end, after X amount of years. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I just spent literally, I would leave my house at 8 o'clock in the morning and I would leave the practice at 7 p.m. at night. So I was there every single day. I asked every single question I could about why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Like a for instance would be, how do you structure the retro fitness? Like, how do you structure the rent payments that you do? And, they think out of the box with everything. So they just wanted to kind of lower their risk. So they would give the retro fitness kind of like, I think it was like 7 or 8% of, gross revenue. So I was like, why are you doing that? Because like we would have these major months and they would cut them checks for like, $10,000. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Well, they're doing that because if it's the flip side, you have 20 clinics. Yeah, maybe 10 of them kill it. But the other ones, like, then you're going to all of a sudden have to pay out rent. So, I mean, it was little things like that on multiple, different occasions that like kind of really opened my eyes from like a structuring basis, just like how to really lower your risk tolerance. So like for me, we had contracts signed, non-competes, all that stuff. So when I jumped ship from associate to opening up my own practice, took all my patients that I was seeing, saw where they were traveling from, drew a 10-mile circle, and I was like, what makes the, most sense? So kind of opened up 10.1 miles from the practice, told all my patients, and I told them I was doing all that stuff. It wasn't like a sleazy move, but, and, being with them and them being business people, they totally understood it. I mean, I'm still friends with them until today. I actually called my boss the other day, or my old boss the other day, and just to kind of see how he's doing. So yeah, but I hope that answers your question. Yeah, that's just asking so many questions. And if you have a boss who's gatekeeping or is like, then he's really not in your best interest anyway, like they should be trying to teach you everything and trying to help you out as an associate. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's awesome. And were you like pretty upfront before obviously drawing that 10-mile radius? Like, were you like, hey, my end goal is this, like, I'm going to want to pick your brain, like when you were in the interview process or you were talking with them, but you like pretty upfront with that, and that's why you feel like they were so willing to share?
Yeah. You guys, you both don't have associates yet, right? At your
Not
practice?
yet.
Yeah. When you pick out associates, you know, if you have somebody come in, and I think they always did, and yeah, I told them off the gate, like, this is kind of what I want to do, but they didn't really care. I mean, they had me for 5-6 years and I grew 4 or 5 practices for them. So I think they were happy with it at the end of the day. I was happy with it, but they're business people. So, I mean, there was no hard feelings at the end of the day, if that's kind of your question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like shifting a little bit of gears here, like, I mean, we can get really tactical with the business, but I think, we have a pretty straight chiropractic office. Like, Zach and I, like, we only provide adjustments. And in your office, you have a lot of different therapies that you offer. A lot of other practitioners, you have occupational therapy, you have physical therapy, all these other things. But the common theme is always going to be mindset. I mean, right, we both work really closely with Steph. You obviously are married to her. Like, there's a lot of mindset shifts that happen as we are growing as business owners. What were some of the things, like, for you that you really felt like you had to overcome to get to this version of?
Yeah. I feel like most docs, like, when you're first starting out, you have to be the man or the woman, you're somebody sitting down in front of you and kind of trusting you with their health and like with, whatever injury it might be. So in the beginning, that's a little bit scary. And it was scary for me too, where, I would kind of stumble over my words. I'd be like, this is my recommendation. I need to see you 3 times a week. Like saying, I need to see you 3 times a week, and me saying, you should really come in 3 times a week, but you can get away with 2 times. I know you have a busy schedule. Like I did that in the beginning, like it was a little bit scary, but like as time goes on, you start to not get the results on those patients who are only coming in 1 time a week, only coming in 2 times a week. And then you start to get a little bit pissed off, right? Because that's a reflection on you. They're leaving Google reviews like, went there, I didn't get the results. And you're like, but you only came here 6 times over the course of 2 months. Like, I mean, what do you think I am?
Yeah.
So I think in the beginning for me, kind of getting my, for lack of a better term, bigger balls, like kind of sitting there. And when I tell them something, like, listen, this is how it has to go. Otherwise, you're not going to get results. And if you think that this is expensive from a time standpoint now, just wait until you can't walk, or wait until you can't move your shoulder up over your head, or wait until you can't pick up your baby, So early on, I think that was kind of a big lesson for me. And I even graduated a little bit older too. So, I mean, I was in practice like 28, 29 is like kind of when I started in practice. So I could only imagine being right out of school at age 24, some of these kids are graduating chiropractic college 22, 23 years old.
Mhm.
So, that's a little bit tough in the beginning. That's where it was tough for me in the beginning. And that was a big kind of learning thing for me. But it was very much mindset from that standpoint. I remember like I would have a new patient coming in. I get down, I do like, 25 push-ups, like I'm like,
Gotta get
let's
that
go,
pump.
like, I'm going to do this, like I would have to get myself like amped up, and then, I mean, it's just, it's also number of at-bats that you get to, the more and more you do it, you start to kind of get your flow and stuff. That was a tough part for me. Yeah.
What about in regards to mindset too? For those that might not know, like you're working like one shift a week in the clinics, maybe 2?
Yes. Yeah. Right now I work on Tuesdays, like actual chiropractic at the clinic. It's not because I don't enjoy it. It's just, I have a 3-year-old son now. So,
You're just chilling with Jet, dude. Jet's awesome. I would
man,
want
he
to be
really
hanging
is.
out with him too.
Yeah. 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 I mean, me and Steph, we talk about it sometimes on her podcast and whatnot, but we kind of do like this in our relationship, kind of like a stair-stepping method where we, one person will go balls to the wall as hard as they can while the other person kind of provides stability in the household. So it kind of looks like, Steph opened her practice while I had the associateship. So we knew that money was coming in from the associateship. I wanted to open my own practice, but the timing wasn't right. And then once Steph kind of got stability in her practice, I went out, branched out, opened up my practice. And then once my practice was stable, Steph opened up her satellite location. Once that was all good, then I opened up my second location. And now that all that's all good, she's starting to really kind of blow up in the consulting world. So, I mean, that's kind of how we think of things. I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
You crushed it.
I mean, that's pretty much it. I
that
was
was the
going
question.
to get into that too. I mean, Zach and I are both married to chiropractors, right? Caitlin and I practice together, and Zach and Morgan each have their own practices. And, what has that dynamic been like for you guys? I mean, you guys are a super successful chiropractic couple. And like, how do you feel like that has, kind of more, I guess, into the stair stepping stuff, but, what has that been like for you guys? Now, y'all are, how many years in practice now and married for how long, what has that been like for you guys being both a chiro couple?
Yeah, I mean, we've been in practice we've been married for 7 years. I think Steph has been in practice for 9. I've been in practice for 7, I believe. The beginning, I mean, when we were first dating, this probably resonated with some of the kids, with some of the chiropractic students that listen to your podcast. But, she's pediatric pregnancy, like straight chiropractic, like just, C1, C2, like it's the world. And I'm, over here like an ART Grosslin guy. So we used to get into like legit arguments when we were in the later tries in school. Like, no, my way is better. My way is better. looking back on it's so stupid because it's all provides value. It's just for different kind of populations. But that was important in our relationship because we knew then that we're never opening a practice together and working in the same practice. Not only because we want to do different things, but also because we're both very headstrong people and we don't want to take orders from each other. So, but it also works for other people that kind of practice together, especially if their philosophies kind of align and they kind of want to go in that direction, or if you want to be in the office at the same time. Like there's a lot of dynamics that it does work for. I think just our personalities, we kind of realized pretty early on that we didn't really want to work together. Yeah, and then we just kind of, as time went on, it takes time to build a practice. But as time went on, and I saw her doing really big things. I knew I needed to kind of take a step back. And then once you throw a kid in the mix too, I knew I want to be around Jet as much as possible. And I have a great team over at the Source. And it kind of runs not on its own. Obviously, we have, business problems and things, and I have to do certain things at the practice. But yeah, I'm just trying, to claw as much time as I possibly can right now, especially these early years, and kind of be around him. Steph always asks in her podcast, what does wealth mean to you? And like my answer always to that is like time. I'll take a hit in my paycheck just to kind of claw some time back. Yeah.
Nice. And where do you, I mean, depending how deep you want to get, but where do you feel like that stems from? Like, where does, time equaling wealth, stem from for you? Was that growing up? Was that, reflected for you or things of that nature?
Yeah. I mean, I had a great childhood. My dad, he was, always around, took me to a million different sporting events all the time. He actually worked shift work. So he would work kind of at night and, then just tough it out throughout the course of the day. He would be like sleeping on bleachers and stuff and taking me places. Yeah. And then I don't know, you hear all these people kind of talk about like, when I'm on my deathbed, like what am I going to regret? Am I going to regret working those extra hours or making that extra money because I was in the office, but I'm missing my kid's game or I'm missing this? So I've always heard that, like different books or different, podcasts where people kind of say that. Or like even if it's like a TikTok and they interview like a 70-year-old guy walking down the street, and it's always that, right? It's always like, I wish I would have spent more time with my kid. So that always kind of resonates with me too. And plus I just like it. I mean, he's so funny right now at 3 years old. Like some of the stuff he says is just, it's so funny. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of my answer to that. But yeah, man.
Yeah, with you guys is like, I mean, yeah, with you guys both having two practices and stuff, like what's your like work home balance like? Do you guys have like any rules around like, hey, like we're not going to do like we're not going to do any of this, or like we're not going to talk about work at home, or we're not going to be, when we're at work, when we're not going to have any home issues or those kind of things. What's like your dynamic like that, your work-life balance?
Yeah, morning times are pretty sacred. So I usually wake up, start cooking breakfast and stuff like that. So we try not to talk any work before 9 a.m. That's like pretty solid rule in our house. At night, obviously we do have things pop up. But pretty much past 7, we try to put down all electronics and things like that. Excuse me once. But yeah, obviously with Steph's consulting stuff, she'll have things pop up, and like that's kind of a little bit more acceptable. But yeah, those are our two main rules. But anywhere from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. is so funny because I'll see Steph kind of looking at the clock for when 9 o'clock hits, so she can just like bombard me with all this stuff, and I'm like, all right. I know it's 9 o'clock. Just kind of relax for a minute here. So yeah, I'll bring Jet to school. We haven't talked about work at all. And then I'll bring him back from school, and Steph's like, okay, we have this to do for taxes. This is like, like, God, man, chill out. But yeah, those are two solid rules. I think everybody should kind of do that. I'm really working on trying to be intentional with my time after 7 o'clock. I have a big TikTok problem. I like TikTok a little bit too much. I'm trying to catch myself grabbing my phone and looking at TikTok rather than kind of playing with my kid. I think that's cool too. Yeah.
They got that algorithm unlocked. They just, I mean,
It's
I'm the same way.
I put all the, the all the rules and regulations on it too, but all it does is pop up and say, "Hey, you've been on this for an hour. Do you want to continue?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"I want to continue."
Yeah, of course.
You have my algorithm on point.
Let's get into the good stuff.
That's why I still haven't downloaded TikTok. I have that. I'm one of those guys. I'll stamp that on my terms. I don't have it.
Don't do it.
I
But I
tried
mean,
to hold
Instagram
off as
Reels
long
is
as
the
I
same
could.
thing.
Yeah, same, right?
I know when Spencer's either, going to the bathroom or like waiting for Kate to come to bed, because I'll just get like 4 notifications of Instagram Reels from Spencer. Like, it's just like, God,
Dude,
I know he's
mean,
not working.
I think that's one of the coolest things about you guys, Kyle, and like really about you in general is like I feel like you just have like a ton of fun like in your life, right? Like if anybody's like on my like that's a super fun guy. Like, what's your Enneagram? Are you a 7?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Like
Yeah.
Kyle's just the guy with the good time, dude. Like every time we hang out, it's just like the best time. Like how do you not take yourself so seriously all the time? And like what are some of the things that you like remind yourself of? Like because I feel like, dude, in business, bro, like we're all so just like, oh, dude, I gotta grind, I gotta make this money, or I gotta see these people, or whatever, dude. But like we forget to have good times. Like you're like the first time I met you in Nashville, you were like, yeah, dude, sorry, I just got back from my week-long surf trip in Nicaragua. Like that's sick, right? Like so what how do you not take yourself so seriously? Like what's your advice to people?
I mean, yeah, just don't, life's short, man, like you're going to have stuff pop up, especially if you're a business owner, you're going to have bad things, not bad, but like crap jump up every single day, It's not about that stuff. It's about kind of your reaction to it. And like, the other day we had a staff member quit right before we came out here to Florida. And I'm like, okay, well, that happens. Like, horrible timing, and I wouldn't do that to you, but like, yeah, we'll tough it out. I'm here for a month, but now now I'm trying to hire somebody remotely, but I feel like if you just kind of let stuff roll off your back, life's just a lot better. There's been multiple times, and we weren't always like that. That's like a learned skill, like where me and Steph would just complain about this, complain about that when we first opened the businesses. And then eventually we just looked at each other. We're like, yo, this is always going to happen. Like, it's always going to happen. Just accept it. This is why you get paid the big bucks. Like, so I think over time we kind of trained ourselves to kind of be a little bit better on that front. And now that we've been in practice for, as long as we have, now it's just like, we just expect it to kind of happen. So I think kind of training your neurology in that sense is super important, not only as a business owner, but as like a family man. And like, I don't want to come home and take out all this stress on Jet, So it's like, I think it's just a little bit better way to live life. But more importantly, it's definitely a trained skill. If you're the type of person that just freaks out whenever something happens, you can switch that. You can kind of switch your neurology. At the seminar that we were all at, the Amanda Appleblatt, she was up on stage and she said something, really, really important. She was like, I get a bottle of really, really good booze, whatever it might be, whatever your favorite is. And anytime something bad happens, I open it and I take a shot and I just laugh. She says that all the time. I think it's the funniest story, but it's super important to kind of, train your neurology, like bad things are going to happen, but I mean, it's not that bad thing that's going to be bad. It's more so the reaction that you have to.
Yeah, it's your perspective to that adversity that really is going to crumble, right? Like, I mean, I always feel like, that's what we just got off our coaching call with Steph, and she was like, oh yeah, dude, like we always have business problems, but like really we have opportunities, right? Like we only have good issues, right? We only have things that are going to continually help us grow. And, I mean, especially as a man, like I feel like we always are like, oh, I have to fix things, or at least this is like kind of how I feel, like, oh, like I'm the leader of the house, I'm the leader of the business, I have to be the one to fix things, and I have to have the answers. And it's like there's always going to be something to work on, there's always going to be something to be better at, it's like, but am I enjoying it in the moment so I can do those things? How did you feel like you changed like as a person whenever you guys had Jet? Because I mean, like working super hard, 8 to 7, all those kind of things, but I feel like things change like as you have kids. Zach and I are preparing to have kids, in the next couple of years and everything. And so, we want to become fathers, but, how did you feel like you as a person, like not you and Steph, not your businesses, but how do you feel like Kyle has changed since Jet has been around?
Changes everything, I mean, really, your life is completely different. Like if you want to go watch Thursday night football with your friends at the bar and have a beer, I mean, that's not really happening anymore, like even with one kid. But it's funny because like for me personally, when Steph first got pregnant, that's when I really started to say, okay, I'm going to try to get some of my time back, try to get an associate in here. Because at the time I was working, I would go into the office 9 a.m., leave the office 7 p.m. And that's acceptable at that time in my life. Like that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be working really, really hard and trying to, save money and get in a place where you can start to kind of provide for a family. And then all of a sudden, Steph gets pregnant. I'm like, man, I really want to be around this kid. I want to be able to help at the house. How am I going to do that? How am I going to start to claw back some of that time? So that was like a really big change for me. It's not like, I wasn't still working on the business, but I was trying to become more of like a CEO type role, be able to find, good people to kind of replace me so I don't leave my patients, needing, care elsewhere and stuff like that. But it doesn't become real. Like for me, I think I've had other friends tell me, when Steph was pregnant, she's 8-9 months pregnant. I feel terrible for her. She's like feeling sick and she's moving around. But for me, it didn't even change. I was like, oh, whatever. But when they take that baby out, man, I was like, oh my God, I'm a dad now. And you actually see him for the first time. I feel like everything kind of changed for me. I knew right then, everything I do in life is going to be to help this kid. And he's ultimately made me a much better version of myself. I've had to structure my time correctly in order to get I love working out, in order to get my workouts in. I've had to, just really be mindful of some of the things that personally for me, I felt like were lacking because I didn't want to cause kind of that generational trauma or, anything like that toward him. So I worked a lot on myself personally, hired some, life coaches to kind of push me in a direction to be a better person. So yeah, I mean, it did change my life, but it changed my life definitely for the better. I love being a dad, and I recommend it to you guys and everybody, like, don't worry, it does change and you lose a lot of freedom, but, I feel like definitely I'm a better person.
Nice. And, like in prep, because that's something, as Spencer mentioned, like we both plan to have kids soon, not together. That sounded weird.
Guys out there,
but like what were like from the business side of things, like you mentioned, like, making sure your associates are ready, but what were you doing for more of that CEO? Like, how did you shift from kind of that like clinic owner or, basically creating a job for yourself into more of that CEO from like a day-to-day and then like marketing and things like that?
Sure. I mean, first step, I had to find a good associate. Luckily, one of my friends knew somebody who's an awesome doc. He was coming right out of school, but he was previously a athletic trainer. So he had kind of a background in the field already. He was a little bit older, practiced just like me. And I'll tell you what, if you guys are, if you're a chiropractor, you have a pregnant wife and you want to kind of claw some time back, best excuse in the world for your patients. My wife's pregnant. I gotta kind of back off here a little bit. I'm sorry. I gotta, do this and that. So yeah, I definitely use stuff as an excuse for their pregnancy with my patients. And yeah, I would take it. So I was working 5 days a week, Monday through Thursday, Saturday mornings. Then I would work 4 days a week for like 2 weeks, have the other doctors start to adjust. Then I worked 3 days a week, then 2 days. Then I was only in there 1 day. And then eventually I kind of unplugged myself totally. So it was a slow kind of evolution. I had my associate with me for like a month and I would just adjust patients, have them start to kind of build, camaraderie with that patient before they ever touch them. I would make sure I bring out the medical history sheets, and I would talk to the patient right in front of the associate. Be like, okay, this patient, has had a, meniscus surgery on the right knee. We're doing Grosset therapy on her quad and tendons. And then I would take the tool. Do you feel the grit there? So it kind of building that camaraderie with the associate coming in, super important. And then, I think also something important to say with bringing an associate in is you build up in your head like you're a god to these patients and they don't care. They just want good chiropractic care or whatever it might be. So I was like really worried about it for a while. And then I noticed when I would cover shifts and stuff, they'd be like, oh, they only want to see Dr. Mike. They don't want to see Dr. Kyle. I'd be like, was like, what are you talking about? Like, man, So I kind of had to drop my ego from that standpoint too. And I notice that all the time now, even with my associates. If I cover a shift or something, 2 or 3 patients will only want to go with the other doctor, and I'm like, whatever. Drop the ego. Probably is better than me in some aspects with the adjusting stuff. So yeah.
I think it's awesome to hear, like, going over the medical history and really like letting your patients know you're not just just stepping out the next day. You're just like, all right, I'm not going to be here anymore. Like, it's like, no, you're a true transition.
Yeah.
I think
The
that's big.
transition is the most important part if you are thinking about bringing on an associate, because, if you just surprise them one day, you're out of the office, now you're going to lose a lot of patients that way. But if you do it nice and slow like that, it's definitely worked the best way for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the common themes. Like, I know we're about to wrap up here, but one of the common themes, like, in really all of your answers is that, you've moved intentionally in everything that you've done. Hey, I've intentionally scaled myself out of this office. Steph and I have intentionally scaled our lives. We are intentionally in Naples for a month. Like, I intentionally don't work in the office so I can spend time with Jet. But like, where have you really found, like, this is what I truly want? Because I feel like, when we talk to a lot of people, like, we talk to a lot of students coming out, they're like, hey, I'm looking for some help setting up my practice. And the first question that I always ask is like, okay, what are the things that you want? How are you going? And like, what is your process to like really figure out, like, all right, Kyle, like, when you and Steph sit down, what are the things that you guys want? Because, I feel like anything that you guys are saying, like, hey, this is what we want to do, it's happening, like, hey, we want to host a event. Hey, we want to stay in Naples for a month. Hey, we want to have a really awesome kid. Like, hey, we want to, spend a lot of time together. Like, how are you guys figuring that out?
Yep. Yeah. January 1st, every year we sit down, we have one of those big ass calendars. Do you guys know what those are?
With Jesse Itzler?
Like a million things. Yeah. We sit down and we make a goal list for the year, and we say, okay, this is all the stuff I want to accomplish this year. I mean, how are we going to get there? What are our goals for this year? We don't really do any like 10-year planning, 20-year planning. I mean, the goals that I had 10 years ago are so different than what they currently are now. And in another 10 years, the goals are going to be totally different than what my goals are currently right now as well. So yeah, to answer your question, that's what we do. We sit down, we make like up a little board or whatever, like, this is what we want to do. This is where we want our practices to be. Do we want another practice? What do we want to do with consulting? And then we kind of back engineer it to say, okay, well, this is where we need to spend our most time over the course of this year. And go in that direction. Then we start to kind of just plan and build out, like, what's that going to look like? For instance, would be like my second practice, the Metuchen practice. That was a good 2 years of planning and saying, okay, is this the right time for this? Do we have enough money in savings? What's the cost going to be on the build out? Where are we going to get the patients from? What are we going to do here? Do we even want that headache? Because, I mean, we knew we could do it, but like, we knew it was also going to be a headache too. So like, is that something that you want? And how much time is it going to take away from the family? So to answer your question, that's kind of how we do it. I know there's other ways, but I would say I'm a big wing it guy. I like to just, like, I didn't prepare for this podcast at all. And anything, I really love to wing it. And Steph's very much more of like a planning type person. So in our relationship, that's definitely something that falls more on her. I'm a dreamer. I'm like, oh, I want a second practice. Let's just sign a lease and we'll figure it out, So, and she's like, no, let's really sit down and kind of plan this out. So I take a backseat to it with her, but January 1st, very exciting day for us. Usually most people are hungover throughout the United States, and we're just like, no way, we're going to hit the ground running this January 1st. So yeah, that's what we do.
That's awesome, man. All right. Well, to wrap up, if you had any one piece of advice for any of our listeners, what would it be? Yeah.
Don't take life too seriously. Don't take life too seriously. You're going to go through a lot of shit over the course of your life. If something happens at school or you do bad on a test, it's just one little piece. The world's a great place if you look at it through that scope. There's going to be ups and downs, but ultimately, if you're a good person, you do the right things, you're going to be on your deathbed and realize that you lived an awesome full life. So yeah, that'd be my advice.
Nice. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks so much for your time, man. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys, man. Thanks for having me on. This is my first podcast. Well, other than Steph's, but
Nah, dude, but this is your first not Steph podcast.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Caster now, man. I'm gonna go start a YouTube channel. It's going big places, baby. Let's do it.
You're going to be having big companies, Element, BetterHelp. They're going to be reaching out to you soon.
That's right.
But wait till the sponsors roll in, baby. Let's do it. Nice talking to you guys. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much for listening to What Now podcast, guys. Peace.
Peace.